For years, the public believed Queen Elizabeth stood firm in every royal decision she made. Unshaken, unquestioned, and always in control. But what if she was wrong? In a move that stunned the royal world, a cousin of Prince William and Harry has come forward, breaking royal silence to defend Meghan Markle, and even claiming that the Queen's judgment on one of the biggest royal moments in modern history was deeply flawed. The story begins on the day Meghan Markle married into the monarchy. Millions around the globe watched as she stepped into St. George's Chapel wearing a wedding dress that became an instant symbol of grace, rebellion, and controversy. But behind the scenes, not everyone was smiling. The Queen was furious, and now, one of her own family members is saying she shouldn't have been. What really happened behind palace doors? Why did Meghan's dress cause such uproar? And why is a royal insider only now daring to say, the Queen was wrong? Stay with us, because what you're about to hear has never been said this openly before. And once you know the truth, you'll never look at that royal wedding the same way again. May 19, 2018, the day Meghan Markle made history. A biracial American actress marrying into Britain's oldest institution. But it wasn't just the who that made headlines. It was the what, specifically what she wore. Meghan's wedding dress, designed by Claire Waite-Keller for Givenchy, was simple, minimal, stark white, no lace, no frills, no extravagance. But there was something else that caught attention, something far more controversial. The color. In royal tradition, wearing pure white is symbolic of purity and virginity. For decades, this color choice was reserved for brides who fit a very particular mold. Meghan didn't. She had been married before. She was a divorcee, and yet she walked down the aisle in a brilliant snow-white gown, unapologetically. Behind the scenes, Queen Elizabeth was said to be deeply displeased. To her, this wasn't just a dress, it was a statement, one that broke protocol, dismissed royal symbolism, and, most importantly, challenged the image the monarchy was trying to present. But here's where it gets interesting, because not everyone inside the royal family agreed with the Queen's judgment. For years, the royal family maintained silence on the issue. No one dared question the Queen's stance on Meghan's wedding dress, not in public and certainly not within palace walls. But then came the voice no one expected, a cousin of Prince William and Harry, someone with royal blood but not shackled by the crown's rules, finally spoke up. And what they revealed shook the royal narrative to its core. This cousin, who chose to remain unnamed in the initial interview, claimed that the Queen's outrage over Meghan's white dress was misplaced. She wasn't trying to provoke anyone, the cousin said. She wasn't making a political statement. She was simply choosing something that felt elegant, timeless, and meaningful to her. The cousin added something even more telling. The Queen was wrong about Meghan. She judged her before truly knowing her. That statement, the Queen was wrong, was a bombshell. It wasn't just an opinion. It was a direct challenge to one of the most powerful figures in modern history. But what made this defense even more powerful was what came next. Because this wasn't just about a dress. It was about the battle between tradition and individuality. And Meghan Markle, knowingly or not, had just become the face of that war. While the world admired the simplicity of Meghan's gown, few realized that every thread had meaning. The dress wasn't just a fashion statement, it was a quiet act of rebellion. Inside her veil, embroidered along the edge, were flowers representing each of the 53 Commonwealth nations. A tribute not to royal elitism, but to global unity, diversity, and inclusion. No one in the royal family had done this before. No one had woven the world into a veil. And that is where the tension reached its peak. Because while Queen Elizabeth valued tradition, protocol, and appearances, Meghan had chosen symbolism, storytelling, and heart. Where the Queen saw a threat to order, others saw an evolution of the monarchy, a sign that perhaps the crown could adapt. But to the Queen, it wasn't just about the color white. It was about control. Insiders say she believed Meghan was being too independent, too Hollywood, and perhaps worst of all, too proud. But Meghan, she remained silent. She smiled, and she walked down that aisle not as a woman asking permission, but as one writing her own legacy. Little did the Queen know, the real rebellion was sown in silence. What began as a dress choice soon grew into a quiet storm behind palace walls. Royal insiders whispered about tensions that rose in the days leading up to the wedding. There were arguments about protocol, about royal image, even about whether Meghan deserved to wear white. Prince Harry was reportedly furious. To him, Meghan was being judged unfairly, reduced to headlines and outdated expectations. He stood by her decision, even if it meant standing against the firm. But others, including Prince William, were more cautious. He feared the fallout, feared the Queen's disapproval, and feared that Meghan's insistence on doing things her way would widen the cracks already forming in their family. That wedding day, while dazzling to the public, marked the beginning of a deeper division behind closed doors. One rooted not just in personality but in ideology. The monarchy had always been a fortress of restraint. But Meghan, in her quiet way, was asking, why must modern love wear the chains of ancient rules? The Queen didn't answer, but her silence spoke volumes. For all her stoicism, Queen Elizabeth was not without reflection. Behind the steel of duty was a woman shaped by decades of difficult decisions. And while she never publicly admitted to any misjudgment over Meghan's wedding, those closest to her say the Queen later questioned if she had been too harsh. According to royal aides, Her Majesty became quieter and more introspective when Meghan and Harry stepped back from royal duties in 2020. She kept asking, one aide reportedly revealed, was there something we could have done differently? Some believe she regretted allowing palace staff to push too hard on protocol. Others say she wished she'd extended more warmth, more welcome, more grace. But by then, the damage was done. Meghan and Harry were gone. And the Queen, despite her pride, may have realized that in trying to protect the crown, she may have pushed away a future it desperately needed. The British monarchy has always lived by a single creed: never complain, never explain. But in the case of Meghan Markle, that silence came at a devastating cost. By refusing to address the Queen's disapproval, by letting tabloids shape the narrative, by standing still while Meghan was torn apart, the firm let its newest member suffer in silence. The cousin who defended Meghan later said, there was a moment to embrace her, to show the world that the monarchy could evolve. That moment was missed. And what's more haunting, it may have been missed forever, because when Meghan and Harry left, they didn't just step away from royal duties, they took with them the one chance to modernize the monarchy from within. The Queen's silence wasn't just about a dress. It was about an institution's refusal to bend, even if it meant breaking something precious. And years later, that silence still echoes through the halls of Buckingham Palace. To some, it was just a dress. To others, it was a revolution sewn in silk. Meghan's choice to wear white wasn't a mistake. It was deliberate, thoughtful, a symbol of reclaiming her own story in a palace that tried to rewrite it. She didn't wear white to erase her past. She wore it to honor her journey, unapologetically, completely, and with quiet power. The Queen may have viewed it as defiance. But for Meghan, it was dignity, not a plea for approval, but a declaration of self-worth. And though the Queen never publicly responded to the cousin's claim that she was wrong, the silence from the palace was telling. No denials, no clarifications, no royal statements, just the world, watching a crown that refused to blink. And now, years later, that white dress is more than a memory. It's a turning point, where tradition and modernity collided in the most public, elegant way possible. Queen Elizabeth is gone now. Her reign, one of the longest in history, marked by grace, duty, and unwavering commitment. But within that legacy lies a chapter that still feels unresolved. The chapter of Meghan Markle. To this day, that cousin's quiet defense stands alone. A flicker of honesty in a sea of silence. No other royal has dared say it outright. That, in her judgment of Meghan, the Queen may have been wrong. And perhaps that's why the moment still haunts the monarchy. Because it wasn't just a missed opportunity for inclusion. It was a test. A test of whether the crown could accept change, accept difference, accept a woman who didn't fit the mold. The Queen chose preservation, Meghan chose authenticity. And between them, a wall of history that neither could break through in time. But the world hasn't forgotten. Because when power is silent, a memory speaks louder. In the end, it wasn't a scandal that exposed the monarchy. It wasn't an interview or an explosive memoir. It was a single voice, a cousin with nothing to gain, only truth to give. A quiet rebellion, not from Meghan, but from inside the royal bloodline itself. Someone who saw the pain, the judgment, the coldness, and said simply, the Queen was wrong, not out of spite, not to shame her legacy, but to remind the world that even monarchs, especially monarchs, can get it wrong. Meghan's dress didn't defy the crown. It revealed it, exposed the fragility behind its grandeur, the fear behind its traditions, and the silence that too often replaces compassion. As the world looks back on that moment, on the woman in white walking into history, one truth remains. Sometimes the most powerful acts of change come not with a shout, but with a whisper that refuses to be ignored.